Hello and welcome back to another other video. Today we are talking about Tropical Storm Frank, which has formed in the East Pacific and is the 6th named storm of the East Pacific hurricane season. So let's start off here on the National Hurricane Center page with the current statistics of Tropical Storm Frank. Tropical Storm Frank has maximum sustained winds of 40 miles an hour, minimum central pressure of 1,004 millibars, and is moving west at 10 miles per hour. So starting off here with our warnings and cone, you can see the current wind area of the storm mostly centered on the western side of the storm. And then we have the cone here, about 3 to 4 days of tropical storms here through 7 a.m. on Friday. By late in the evening on Friday, we see the switch over to a hurricane and shift towards a more northwesterly trajectory here. So let's take a look here at our arrival time of winds with wind speed probabilities turned on. Now, of course, right now we have a 100% chance of tropical storm force winds, but we see that diminish, of course, as the uncertainty levels are higher, as long as the maximum threshold is tropical storm force. But eventually, after Thursday at 8 p.m., earliest arrival time, we do get back up into that 70-80% chance of tropical storm force winds, and that extends through Saturday at 8 a.m. And then, of course, as you get to that 5-day mark, the uncertainty levels go up, and you see here the chance of tropical storm force winds does go down. So we are going to head on over here to the satellite imagery here, where we do have Tropical Storm Frank really starting to blow up here with some of those thunderstorms here. You can see right over here, boom, just a bunch of thunderstorm development there, and we are still seeing a disorganized storm, but it should be becoming a little bit more organized as we start to move through. Now, here's our global hurricane models here, and you can see that slight shift to the north after about 72 hours. Most of the spaghetti strands, as I like to call them, show that shift toward more of the northwest right around 72 hours. And crossing that 20 degrees north threshold, which we usually see East Pacific storms do, and start to kind of weaken after that point at about 144 hours for most of those spaghetti strands, as I like to call them. Now, a few spaghetti strands do have this storm, Frank, staying a little bit further to the south here, not passing that 20 degrees north threshold until about hour 168, and then you have that shift to the north not really starting until hour 72, but a little bit further to the south, kind of taking more of a gradual amount of time. Then you have a couple spaghetti strands having this taking that turn to the north in the next 48 hours and passing that 20 degrees north threshold at about the same time at 120 hours, but a little bit further to the east. So here is the GEFS with the median line here in black, showing that currently that the storm is at around 1,005, and that the actual strength of the storm will not change much within the next 48 hours, just down to 1,003 millibars, so just 1 to 2 millibar difference. But after 96 hours here, we're down at 988, so the increase in strength will happen between 48 and 96 hours, according to the GEFS. And then relatively the same thing between 96 and 144 hours, just going up by 4 millibars to 992 millibars. So staying at a good strength, but a consistent strength within that time. And then eventually, after it crosses this 20 degrees north threshold, we do see it start to weaken off. We usually see storms in the East Pacific start to weaken off as they move further north into colder waters, and that usually ends up being right around this 20 degrees north threshold. It always seems that when we have East Pacific storms, when they start to make their turns toward the north and northwest, whenever that 20 degrees north threshold comes into play, that's when you start to see storms start to weaken off. So here is the GEPS, which shows that turn to the north at around 48 hours at 1,004 millibars. Again, the drop there is not very significant, so staying at about the same strength as it is at now. But again, between 48 and 96 hours, 10 millibar drop to 994 millibars. And then you can start to see this start to level out toward just a westerly track here on the GEPS median. And between 96 and 144 hours, a little bit of an increase in millibar count, so it is weakening just a little bit to 1,000 millibars. And between 144 and 192, another 8 millibar increase, and by 240, another 3 millibar increase. So again, once you get north of that 20 degrees north threshold, you do start to see storms weaken off. So the European model here, showing that general westerly path here for about 72 hours, turning to the north and passing that 20 degrees north threshold that are between 120 and 144 hours. Now you can see here, this is the max winds, these spaghetti strains. So these are in knots, and you can see the strongest period here is between 72 and 144 hours on most spaghetti strains. But that is where our intensity guidance does come into play. You can see that most models have this staying as a tropical storm for at least 36 hours. But most have this staying as a tropical storm, maybe even to 60 hours. But the important part with this intensity guidance here is that the models aren't choosing one path. There's a lot of different options, a lot of different possibilities with Tropical Storm Frank as it's moving through the East Pacific. But the one constant is wherever the storm peaks out, it's usually right around hour 96, which the models that we just saw, the GEFS, GEPS, and the European model do support. But we do have certain spaghetti strains, again, as I like to call them, having this storm as high as a Category 4. One spaghetti strain there. Two spaghetti strains peaking off at Category 3. Another two here at Category 2. But most models here have this peaking out at a Category 1. But a few, I think that's 4 or 5, have this peaking out just at a tropical storm, keeping the intensity pretty low as it moves through the East Pacific. So we do have two models here. Here is the GFS, and you can see here that, again, the intensity really doesn't change within the next 60 hours. Then we start to see things start to intensify. That broad area of low pressure that we have now starts to kind of condense, and we start to see those millibars drop all the way down here to 972 millibars here at 120 hours, which is 8 a.m. on Sunday, July 31st, Eastern Time. And then, of course, we see things start to go back up the millibar count, which means the storm is weakening, and you can see that once it gets above that 20 degrees north parallel, things weaken very quickly, and the storm practically dies off here at 8 a.m. on Friday, August 5th. Let's take a look here at the lower dynamics and take a look at our wind speeds here, because that is the most important thing about these storms. So at peak intensities, we're looking at about a Category 1 storm here on the GFS, but this storm does remain at least a tropical storm or tropical depression for a while. Really doesn't start to pick up that intensity here until Friday the 29th. Then we start to see things pick up pretty quickly, and again, once it crosses that 20 degrees north parallel, we start to see things weaken off there. So here is the European model here, and of course we have a 1007 millibar low pressure, slowly kind of tightening up, but kind of staying at the same strength here until about the 30th here. Then we start to see that shift to the north and a little bit more intensity there as those millibars start to drop. I believe the lowest here is at 996. But again, the difference between the GFS and the European model, the European model does not have this storm getting as strong. And again, once it crosses that 20 degrees north threshold, weakens off very quickly. And this is 2 a.m. on August 5th, basically died off. Top strength here right around 8 a.m. on the 31st, Sunday. And let's take a look at those winds, shall we? Yeah, actually at tropical storm strength, or tropical depression strength, for its entire lifespan pretty much. The European model is very bearish on this storm, and that could show if this does actually happen. The trend downward in the East Pacific hurricane season, as those conditions generally get less conducive for development. Now, again, we are expected to have a below average East Pacific hurricane season, so this could be a kind of a precursor to what seems to be a fairly slow East Pacific hurricane season projected by the National Weather Service and the Colorado State University predictions here. As the Atlantic is expected to ramp up, the East Pacific is expected to cool down, but we do have Tropical Storm Frank, 6th named storm of the season. But that is all the information I have for today. If you found this video informative, consider leaving a like, subscribing, and hitting the bell. That's all I have for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.